Alright, this video is on autism, cohabitation, and sensory overload. Um, Cohabiting a space with another person is pretty difficult. I was about to say the same thing. When it comes to cohabiting an environment with someone else, it's oftentimes stressful. Um, but then there's the whole situation where sensory overload happens, and a lot of people experience this. Right now, I'm making a video. I couldn't make this video if we were watching a television show. Um, Oftentimes, especially when you're living in someone else's living environment, you encounter the issue of you can't do the things that you need to do, especially when it's work related, and this is work related. You don't want to interrupt their routine and their lifestyle and the things that they're interested in. So you have to hold off on it. And most of the places that I've been since Natalie died, people have been accepting of a lot of the aspects that I have of autism. But the sensory overload is something that most of them don't understand. Like when I was at Shannon's with her screaming all the time, it wasn't screaming at me, and she feels that it should be fine and I should just get over it. It doesn't work that way. Where I'm at now, there's no screaming. If there's me and the gentleman that I'm staying with are yelling at each other, it's not in a violent, angry fashion. He's on the other side of the house, or I'm on the other side of the house, and actually you can hear each other across the house, so it doesn't even end up screaming in that situation. But it's also the fact that I don't want to disrupt his routine. And because of past experiences with people, I don't want to interrupt him for anything. But it's also not his issue, it's mine. It's my issue with sensory overload. Like if I'm trying to watch a video, for example, and he's watching TV, it's difficult for me to understand both things at the same time. Or let's say he's watching a TV show, but he wants to talk to me. I can't understand both at the same time, which in this particular case, he understands. That helps out a lot. It reduces a lot of stress and a lot of agitation. Um, the videos where you guys hear the trains going by, they go by about every 15 to 20 minutes here. They go by more frequently at night because there's less traffic. But also at night, that's when it's the best time for me to make those videos because I'm going to be up at night anyway. I have a lot of things that I need to do, and it's too much for me to handle. Literally, it is so much that it shuts me down and I can't do anything. When I'm able to make a video and I'm able to speak on a video, I feel lucky that I'm able to do that. I feel lucky that I'm not so stressed out that I'm incapable, right? Um, just that dog whimpering right there was enough to sidetrack me because I had 5 or 6 thoughts at once that I was wanting to express. So this will probably end up being me talking about something other than what I had planned on. That's due to the high level of stress. Now, this is not a stressful environment, but it is stressful for me because I don't have any money to contribute. I don't want to interrupt his lifestyle or, um, like, say, I need to make phone calls. I need to make them during the day. And if he's here, then I don't want to make those phone calls because I don't want to interrupt his lifestyle or I don't want to interrupt the movie that he's watching. Now, yesterday he was watching a movie and I had to call my Aunt Mary and he turned off the movie. He accommodated me for that. And it wasn't something they had to do, but it definitely helped me out a lot because I wasn't trying to maintain my concentration and what it is that I was saying and doing over the sound of the movie. Um, there's different places where I've been where it's entirely too loud, and that contributes to sensory overload. Here, there's no screaming unless we're screaming at the dogs, and that is the only time we scream at each other. And we're not screaming at each other, we're screaming at the dog. Hey, get out of the garbage can, you know? So it's not a stressful situation for me in that aspect. It's not too loud. The only situation that it ever becomes too loud is the TV, which is not an issue because we both have similar interests in what we watch, and not all the time. You know, there's shows that he likes that I'm not really into, and shows that I like that he's not really into. And because it's his household, I do try to accommodate him as best I can. And we do cohabitate well. Um, a lot of my anxiety being here is that I'm not contributing anything. I don't have any money to contribute. Um, I don't have an income. And as far as getting a job, because of everything that I have to deal with, I literally can't work. I can't pull my mind away from the trauma that I've experienced because I'm still experiencing the consequences of everything that went on. Some of those consequences include not having an income. When somebody makes a suggestion in typing, this is one of my biggest stressors. This is one of the things that will break me down heavy. When somebody makes a suggestion because they're not aware of the situation, um, yes, there it is, back scratcher. I used to be able to reach every bit of my back, but because I screwed up my back, I can't. So when I've explained something to 30 or 40 different people in typing, and those 30 or 40 people all take it in the wrong way, it's obvious that typing is not the way to do it. Explaining it to them is. So when somebody says, you need to go see a therapist, um, have you ever tried going to see a therapist? That's something that I already know that they're going to make a whole bunch more suggestions, and they're just going to keep on making suggestions. And I need to be able to explain to them what's going on. I already know what their next line of questioning is going to be because of all of the questioning of all of these other people, and I get tired of explaining it over and over and over again. So I make a video that none of these people watch. So when somebody says, for example, when somebody says, have you ever tried going and seeing a therapist? Well, I was seeing 3 therapists before Natalie died. After Natalie died, I not had the money to see a therapist. I mean that literally. Um, right before Natalie died, a woman named Kinga Nichols gave me $100 so that I could travel here to Nebraska to see Nicole Peralta. That money ended up getting spent. That was part of the money that I tried to offer to Natalie to try to get her somewhere safe. I didn't know that she was dead at that point in time. Then there's the explanation of why I can't go see a therapist now. I don't have the money. I don't have a vehicle. I don't have anyone to take me. Now, that's not to say that I couldn't ask people, because I can. There just aren't very many people that I can ask. Um, then there's the fact that the guy that I'm staying with, he's not rich by any means. So for me, asking him to do a favor like that is asking him not to eat for a couple of days. That's that's what poverty is. Um, and yeah, it would rob him of being able to eat for a couple of days. And that's something that I obviously feel bad about. Now, then there's the fact that in typing, when I try to explain these things, people end up, after going through a list of things that I don't have the ability to do, they get to the point where they're like, oh, you don't want any help. You're not trying to get help. You're just making excuses. And not having money to do these things isn't an excuse, it's a fact. Not having a vehicle is not an excuse, it's a fact. Um, the TV, if it's too loud and you're trying to have a conversation with me, which isn't a problem here, um, but if you are trying to have a conversation with me while the TV is blaring, I'm not going to be able to have that conversation. If you are having a conversation and it's you, me, and one other person, I'm not going to be a part of that conversation because there is too much stimuli. If you ask me 3 or 4 questions before I'm able to answer the first one, we're going to have some major issues because at that point I have to try to prioritize and you're still talking. I'm still trying to answer your first question, but I can't even think because you're still talking and I'm trying to listen. Um, Veronica Randall was very bad about this. Now, one of the reasons for me telling people to call me is that because so many people take my typing in such a wrong way, it stresses me out to do that. So if I type the word stop, that means please stop. Stop typing. Something that you typed was wrong or incorrect, and it's going to take an explanation that I'm not able to explain in typing. I'm going to have you call me so I can actually explain it. But also, when I call you, you need to allow me to speak. You can't interrupt me in the middle of a sentence because I'll have to start all over again. And that's not me trying to be a jerk. Now, then we encounter the issue of cohabitation and substance use. Shannon is a drinker, so she gets to talking when she's drinking, and she doesn't hear very well when she's drinking. You can say the same thing 30 times to her, literally 30 times to her while she's drinking, and she is not going to remember it. She'll remember everything the next day. She won't remember anything that you said, but she remembers everything that she was thinking. Um, and sometimes not even then. Sometimes she will repeat the same thing over and over again, not realizing that she already said it. Alcoholism is different from autism by a lot. With autism, I am getting too much information at once. With alcoholism, you're not really gathering any information. You're stuck in your own internal monologue. So if I say, hey, I need to talk to you one on one, there are specific environments where I can do that. At Starbucks, for example, I'm able to have a one on one conversation at Starbucks because the music, if it's on, is very quiet and it's not a loud environment like a school cafeteria. It's generally people speaking at their own table, a few feet away. They're not talking loudly. It's a soothing environment. But there's also the fact that you're in public. There are certain things you just can't talk about in public. You need a private environment. Um, and then there's the fact that if you're in somebody else's household, it may not be as private as you want it to be. And your topic of conversation, or the fact that you're having that conversation, um, may be a little bit more disruptive to their lifestyle than they can handle. Or, in my case, the sheer volume of it, not volume as in sound level, but quantity wise, it might be too much. Um, when you're cohabiting a situation where you're with somebody who's a meth addict, like when I went to Virginia this last time, I didn't expect them to be on meth, and I didn't expect them to be loud and screaming at each other all the time. And it takes me time to recover from being in that environment. Um, the more I have to deal with that, the more time it takes to recover. So at Shannon Alvarado's, for example, I had to deal with that every day. And before I was able to recover from the last time she was screaming at her boyfriend, she's screaming at her boyfriend. That doesn't make her a bad person, but at the same time, it's not a good working environment. Um, most of the people whose place I've been at, we just don't get along. It's not that they're bad people or that I'm a bad people. It's that it's sensory overload and it is entirely too much all at once. Um, my dad's house. My dad didn't listen to me, didn't try to understand what it is that I was trying to tell him. I never got to finish what I was saying with my dad the whole time I was up there. So my dad is making decisions based on assumptions that are based on him not listening. So when I try to explain something to him, he jumps automatically to a conclusion that is probably incorrect. Now, let's say you type something that really stresses me out, and I need to be able to explain it to you, and I already know that it's not going to work in typing. Like when somebody, I'll give you an example. Monkey's ex, her name is Lori, and she sent me two or three things about basically she's trying to help by sending these links that aren't helpful. And I let her know, hey, Lori, I need you to understand, which means I need you to call me. So she says that she'll call me. And I asked her to stop basically serial linking things to me because she linked like 5 or 6 of these things at once. And I asked her to stop. What did she do? She started serial linking you faster. Here, Sean, here's 7 more that'll help you out. No worry, you're not understanding. I need you to call me so that you understand what help I need, so that I can explain to you what help I need. instead of you assuming the help I need and spamming the hell out of it. This led to an argument between me and Lori, but then there's also the situation where I'm sober and she's a meth addict. Now, I'm trying to accommodate the best I can because I understand her addictions. I've worked with people who had those addictions for a lot of years. I helped out a lot of people with those addictions for a lot of years. But then you encounter, when you're trying to explain things like that, you encounter people who are like, well, you know, most people who are homeless are on drugs. Actually, 74% of homeless people are not drug addicts. 74%. So when you say most homeless people are on drugs, you're completely wrong. Um, when it comes to cohabitation, when you're homeless, you are cohabiting an environment with a lot of people, but you're not cohabiting a living space with another person. Um, the feeling of being trapped is a very real feeling. When you don't have the money to go somewhere else, like the situation when I was at Shannon's, I really needed the evidence that Graham had. I needed him to send it when he said he would. But it took him 6 weeks to send that. That whole time, I'm listening to Shannon scream every day. I'm trying not to have a meltdown. I'm trying my best not to have a meltdown through all of that screaming. And I have to be patient because I can't make Graham send that stuff. And I can't make Shannon stop drinking and screaming at her boyfriend in her own household. So I'm stuck in an environment where I'm having a sensory overload, and Shannon should understand this. I mean, she claims she understands autism and claims that she understands sensory overload. And then every night she is sending me into a sensory overload. And then there's stresses that come from the cohabitation and the rules of that cohabitation. Like me, I needed to make phone calls during the day. But she was afraid of getting in trouble for screaming at her daughter if her daughter was hitting her, which happens often. So I couldn't make the phone calls that I needed to make for that whole 6 weeks that I was there. Um, so I had to try to do things at night. And trying to do things at night, well, you aren't going to get a hold of the people that you need to at night because at night they're not at work. They're not going to answer their work phone. The public pretender's office is not going to answer their phone at midnight. And when they call you back, if you leave a message at midnight on their machine and they call you back during the day, well, you can't make that phone call or receive that phone call during the day because Shannon is afraid that she'll get in trouble. And then there's the issue of her alcoholism. She kept on asking me because some people were going to come over to her house over a situation that had happened. Had nothing to do with me. Um, and she was asking me, well, how can I pass a piss test for alcohol? I said, well, just don't drink. So for an entire week, like basically she's asking me at least 20 times every single day of that week, you know, how can I pass the piss test? You know, she's not drinking at that point in time. I mean, she did stay sober that whole week, but she was also a complete wreck as a result of it because she's got that addiction. So it's difficult for me to be in that environment because she is freaking out because she's not getting her alcohol. And she's wanting advice from me that I've already given her the answers that I know. I know that if you don't drink and you have to take a test for alcohol, if you don't drink, you're going to pass that test. Um, it does make it difficult to do the things that I need to do when I'm dealing with these people's assumptions of how it is. Like with Shannon, I had hoped that she understood the volume level is important. With her screaming at her boyfriend every night, that showed that she didn't understand or just simply could not control herself at that point because she had that alcohol in her system. And there's the functionality of the situation. Um, if I can't do the things that I need to do, then that is not a positive environment for me. That is not a safe environment for me. With watching a TV show that's maybe a little bit too loud for me, if it's just a TV show that I'm dealing with, then it's fine. If I'm dealing with a TV show and dogs jumping on top of me and somebody talking to me, I am going to get overwhelmed. I am going to shut down. With other people's addiction problems, with me having to deal with that and not having those addiction problems, because I quit drinking years and years ago. Um, I can see where she's coming from as far as her alcoholism. But there's also the fact that I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice between my alcohol and the people that I care about. And I chose the people that I care about. People I care about are more important than the alcohol that I cared about. When you're first trying to recover, um, it's important that you stay away from those kind of people. When you first decide that you're going to quit using alcohol, you need, number one, you need to stay away from people who are drinking, especially at the beginning. But the same goes for any substance that you could possibly get addicted to. If you're trying to quit cigarettes, you probably should stay away from people who are smoking. If you're trying to quit meth, you need to get away from people who do methamphetamine. If you're trying to quit heroin, you need to stay away from people who do heroin. Um, there's also the fact that if you're sober, you really aren't going to interact well with people who are on substances because they are not in their right mind. When I was at Rayanna's, she was not in her right mind. When I was at Shannon's, she was not in her right mind. When I was at Brett's, he was not in his right mind. And that is very stressful for me because all of these people are screamers. Only one of them is physically violent, and that was Rayanna. Shannon, not physically violent. Brett, not physically violent. At least never that I've seen. But because so many people have been on substances and been abusive towards me or towards others around me, it escalates the situation and it increases my chances of shutting down or having a meltdown. And when I have a meltdown, people are not accepting of those at all. Um, so cohabiting with another person when you're autistic and having sensory overload is not easy. Doing the things that you need to do in that environment is not easy. The privacy issue becomes an issue. Now here I'm lucky. I can go upstairs, I can plug in my computer there, and I can make a video there. Part of the reason for me making the video downstairs is that it's pretty chilly up there, and I figured one video wouldn't hurt the man that I'm staying with. But also, I'd like to get his input after I'm done with the video. So I'm gonna finish the video now and ask his opinion on it.